Good morning and welcome back to the Goon multiplayer spectacular. Currently, SctochDK as the Fukuhara Taira is versing GenericServices as the Ishima Taira. As this is an elimination round in the losers bracket, the loser of this overall round will be eliminated from the tournament. Now, as we can see, Scotch has brought along 3 Nagi attendants, his Nagi Monk Hero, 2 Sword attendants, and off the flank here, 2 regiments of mounted samurai, which he's going for the Sword Dojo. And on the other side, GenericServices has bought mounted Naginata, which he's using very aggressively to push Scotch off the Sword Dojo, in addition to 3 Naginata attendants, a regiment of Naginata warrior monks, and 3 bow levy, and his mounted samurai hero. So less cavalry on GenericServices' side, significantly more ranged with the bow levy, but this isn't a good map for a ranged fight as it's flat. The buildings are definitely very centralized and there's not too much going on. Now if we just quickly pop around to this side here, we'll see that Scotch has dismounted his mounted samurai and is capturing the archery dojo uncontested from GenericServices. This is more of a denial than anything, as the archery dojo is unlikely to make a difference to Scotch's army, as he has only very minimal ranged units. Now, he's made a mistake here and let his mounted samurai get caught by the mounted Naginata, but fortunately he withdraws them, although he has lost half of them on that initial charge. GenericServices fails to spot the Naginata attendants being brought up, and the mounted Naginata get caught and will be cut down in short order. On the other hand, the Sword Dojo, GenericServices knows the importance of this and has got his Naginata attendants there, and they're ready to rock. So he's capturing that slowly, and we can already see that the Archery Dojo has been taken by Scotch. So that's the mounted Naginata off the field, and the remnants of the mounted samurai taking pot shots at the bow levy, as the bow levy try to take pot shots at these Nagi attendants which are capturing the workshop. Obviously they're not doing too much right now, there's only 5 of them down. Bow levy are particularly poor against heavily armoured targets, and so GenericServices brings his Nagi monks in to contest the control area and prevent it. So the battle lines are pretty much going to be joined at this point, because Scotch is bringing in the attack, and he has no range with which to maximise that, so he wants to close as soon as possible. These Nagi attendants come in. Now these sword attendants, ideally they would have been great to bonsai here to maximise the charge they'd get, but other than that, it's a pretty solid sort of a charge. It deals decent damage right off the bat, kills about 1/10 of the enemy unit, which is alright, it's not spectacular. A bonsai is there, but it's a little late, so we'll see what's going on. Now, as you can see, we've got the Nagi attendants here tied up with the Nagi monks, so you'd expect the monks to win that end of the fight rather decisively. And of course we have another fight here for the Sword Dojo with the Nagi attendants 1v1. Mounted Samurai Hero, of course, appear to be facing the wrong way, so they're not going to be helping too much at this point in time. Almost immediately we see a standard fight from GenericServices. This would be good, except his center line has just collapsed under the force of these sword attendants. So all of a sudden he's looking in a lot of trouble. So we see some interesting use of the mounted samurai here, coming in around the back of the units. Now don't be afraid with mounted samurai to charge them in. They've got fantastic melee statistics, 14 melee attack, 3 melee defense, and a reasonable charge of 10. So they would really obliterate bow levy, for example, with a rear charge. So there's really no reason to have them sit there shooting when they can do far more damage buried in the rear of an opponent's units. So we can see now that basically the center line of GenericServices' army has completely collapsed, and his general is under incredible pressure from all sides. These bow levy just aren't going to be able to hold off against the sword attendants, and of course the Naginata warrior monk hero, who's, when he's in your general, you're in a lot of trouble. So the center line's basically completely collapsed. Now the mounted Naginata did come back to launch a last-ditch attack on the general's bodyguard, and that's a great play from GenericServices, because that's really the best he can hope for, is taking out the general, but it's not going to be enough, it's not going to happen, and with that his forces are just going to collapse as his general routs. Very mounted samurai hero, great number of kills. Once again, the same problem with GenericServices as with other players with their mounted samurai is not using them as melee forces in addition to their ranged firepower. Yes, their ranged firepower is absolutely critical, but what routes units is receiving a cavalry charge in the rear. If they have an open target, like sword attendants, for example, or bow levy, or any ranged unit, or even their even the opponent's general, if you can get them in there, they will do magnificent things. But they're going to do far less when they're shooting high-value targets, even though they're going to do a fair bit of damage. It's personal preference. Obviously, if you do charge them in, you're going to lose a few, and you lose the mobility associated with them, but nevertheless, I think you'll find that just being able to crunch that key unit when you need to is often the difference between victory and defeat. Nevertheless, a well-played battle from both players. Great skirmishing. It's really good to see the standard of cavalry management going up throughout the tournament as people learn new tricks of the trade. And, well, what can I say? It's a fairly simple map. There's not a whole lot of terrain to take advantage of. Just a straight grind-out fight. But both players did very, very well, and I'm certainly excited to see the next battle. Hope to see you soon.